Good evening, everyone, or good morning, depending on what time it is. See, I have two people watching right off the bat. Hello and thank you. Let me make sure the live chat is on. And I can't touch the computer because Candy's got to get it in here. There, live chat is on. There you go. I got her in the thumbnail today. Yeah. Shake off. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Lay down. Lay down. Shake. Lay down. Shake. Shake. Speak. 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 Yeah. There you go. People who watch my videos regularly should expect that. That's the start of pretty much all of them. Before I get going, the usual, thank you for the likes and the subscriptions. I'm over 800 now. Unbelievable. For this, again, I haven't said it for a while, but this miserable, pathetic YouTube channel with zero production values. But I kind of like it the way it is because I think it speaks to genuineness, to a degree of authenticity. This isn't a lot of lipstick. It's just unvarnished. And tonight I'm talking about black swan events. And it's a term that I've used on this channel before, after Klaus Schwab had addressed a meeting in Bali, Indonesia, back in November of 2022. At that time, in November of 2022, the G20, the world's 20 largest economies, heads of state, ministers of finance, and the like, senior government officials were meeting in Bali, Indonesia, where they were holding that year's G20 summit. And there was a parallel summit called the B, as in B for business, 20 summit. And Klaus Schwab, the founder and president, I guess, of the World Economic Forum, he addressed this B20 summit. To be clear, it wasn't actually the G20, but from what I understand, the B20 summit is part of the G20 summit. They run in parallel. And what I recall having read at the time, back in November, December of 2022, is that in his address to this B20 summit, that Klaus Schwab had said that the world should anticipate more black swan events as we transition during this fourth industrial revolution. Now, the only thing is, now this term black swan has come up again, with specifically related to this container ship which struck the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. I think it's in and around, I can't pronounce the name of the river, but I think it's in and around Chesapeake Bay in Maryland, in that part. Anyway, that has been referred to in some reporting as a black swan event. And so firstly, what is a black swan event? The term became popular after the 2007, 2006, 7, 8, and around there, the great financial crisis. And it's typically a term that is used in financial markets to describe a negative, a bad, an ominous event happening. Certainly, that great financial crisis of in and around 2007, the housing bubble in the United States, which imploded and wreaked havoc on global economies. That was called a black swan event. Black swan events could also be described as anything that happens on Wall Street. If you find out that a company was forecasting a $2 billion profit for the coming year, and they come in and they announce that they've only earned $500 million, that would be a black swan event, or if they actually lost money. So this event, when I heard Klaus Schwab, when I saw the reporting saying Klaus Schwab has predicted more black swan events going forward into this time, I did a few videos in around, I think around December of 2022. And I said, I'm simply in trying to forecast and trying to look ahead and trying to see what's coming at us. I'm listening to Klaus Schwab. He certainly knows a lot more than I do. And I don't know exactly what video I said that on, but I went back and I tried to find an exact quote, tried to find something I was reading from that time, something from reporting on this B20 summit in Bali, Indonesia, and I haven't been able to find anything. Perhaps someone watching my video has better searching skills than I do, or perhaps has something bookmarked. I'm quite certain, I'm not doubting my memory. I remember reading that. I may have even seen a video with him saying it, and trying to reconfirm, trying to go back and see it again, I'm coming up dry. But there have been a number. I mean, COVID was obviously a black swan event. And I don't want to rehash that whole fiasco that we went through from 2020. Sharunian Allegiance says she loves the Arizona hoodie given to me by a friend. The Cardinals, I think this is the football team. It used to be the St. Louis Cardinals. So that was certainly, but we've had other events, and maybe someone can remind me, Sharunian Allegiance, or anyone else watching. There was another container ship, and I can't remember if it was in the Suez Canal or what shipping area, but it became wedged. It might have been the Panama Canal. I can't remember. And that stymied, that slowed down world shipping for a period of time a year or so ago. Now we have this new event. I think we should also remember what happened in East Palestine, Ohio, and I can't remember exactly when it happened. I think it was October of 2023, maybe. That was another black swan event. The Zombie Force is saying that it was in the Suez Canal, which is off the coast of Egypt in the Middle East. Everyone remembers that story, and I'm guilty as anyone. I think I'm a little bit better. I think I have a little bit more capacity to recall things than many, but still, it's tough to keep everything in your head, all the details. But I think a lot of this stuff by a large part of the population just gets forgotten. Talking about East Palestine, Ohio, that situation was absolutely insane. Zombie Force says it gets worse as you get older. Yeah, yes, I've noticed. But if you'll remember what happened in East Palestine, when that train derailment took place, and I think it was chlorofluoride or something like that, got spewed into the atmosphere. Fish were dying, chickens were dying, wildlife was dying. And what's amazing, you talk about predictive programming. A year before that actual derailment, Netflix had produced a movie, and it starred Adam Driver, Kylo Ren from the Star Wars movies. He starred in a Netflix movie. I think it was called White Noise, and it was about a train derailment in Ohio. And the city of East Palestine, Ohio, was used in the filming. And the people of that town actually participated in the filming as extras for the evacuation scenes when this train derailed and sent a toxic cloud up into the atmosphere, and everyone in the town had to vacate. Well, this town got to participate in the filming of it. Then they got to watch the actual movie on Netflix. And then a year later, they got to actually live it in real life experience. And when it comes to the long-term health impacts of something like vinyl chloride, if I'm remembering correctly, that was the chemical that was spilled. And they actually burned it off. They had what they called a controlled burn. And they spewed this stuff into the atmosphere. And I remember checking to see where the projection of the cloud was. And it struck me that it was reasonable to expect that some of it might make its way over Lake Ontario to my little end of southeastern Ontario, hopefully diluted incredibly. But and now we have this latest Francis Scott Key Bridge being struck, and I've watched the video. I'm sure everyone has seen it, and the bridge basically boom, completely collapsing. I've watched. There's a YouTube channel. I believe the name of the channel is Redacted. I'm sure some of you have seen it, and their talking head. I don't know the gentleman's name, but he shows the video, and then superimposing circles on it shows what he purports might be. Doesn't say they are, but he says they might be explosions. It's almost like the World Trade Center building number 7 that just collapsed seemingly on its own, perfectly on its footprint, like a controlled demolition. And it was, when we look at the manner in which this bridge collapsed, you almost have to question. Questioning things is, any thinking person is going to question things now. I still think a large percentage of the population, though, defaults to whatever the news tells me to think. That's what I'll think. Whatever they tell me to think, whatever they tell me to believe, however they tell me to feel, that's what I'm going to do. And I know that the people watching my channel and myself, we tend to question things to a much higher degree. That doesn't mean we get everything right, but we don't just default automatically to whatever the talking heads on the newscast say. And so the question now going forward is, we've seen all these black swan events. What's coming down the pipe? What could be next? And I think the most obvious one to look at is April 8th, when this solar eclipse is going to happen. And I've looked at the map. My little town does fall within the band. And the band, I don't know how wide it is. It might be, 100 kilometers wide, maybe, something like that. And if you're right in the middle of the band, that's where you're going to get the totality and the longest duration of a total eclipse. I'm within the band, but I'm well north of the center line. I think the center line is actually traveling over Lake Ontario, but I'm very close to Lake Ontario. Lake Ontario, I can walk to a bay that's attached. I can be there in 2-3 minutes just walking down the street. I live very close to the lake. So April 8th, I think, is going to be an interesting day, and it should be noted, it was just reported, I think, today, maybe yesterday, that the city of Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada, has proactively declared a state of emergency ahead of April 8th. So they will be in a state of emergency on that day, and Niagara Falls falls pretty much dead center of that band, that I'll call it the totality band. I've got Zombie Force writing. I think that the buildup of police and the way Trudeau tested the fence was truly to see the limit of people. I have no doubt about that. I agree with you 100%, Zombie Force. I think a lot of this is being, I don't know exactly what term to use, but it's being tabled out. It's being, there are individuals who are the same way in a military action. You'll have that table with the ground laid out, and you're moving pieces around on it constantly as the landscape changes, as attacks and counterattacks take place, and you're constantly moving your pieces around on the board. Well, I think that same type of situation is taking place now. I think it took place during COVID. Well, let's push, okay, how did they react? And that is used for planning going forward. I think that's so October 8th, there is talk that because so much of the hydro grids power is generated from solar energy now, and even in my little town, there's a field full of solar panels. And I do not have a degree in electrical engineering by any stretch of the imagination. I understand things simply from 100 miles up. But my understanding from 100 miles up, simplistic understanding, is that the grid that we all draw electricity from. My computer right now is hooked up to an outlet. It's pulling power off the grid. And as I pull power off the grid, a commensurate amount of power needs to be going onto the grid. And that's why we have these transformer stations and such that slow things down, and then they can speed things up so that if there's a sudden draw, they can speed up and keep it roughly in balance. Doesn't have to be kept perfectly in balance, but roughly in balance. And so with so much power, with a lot of power anyway, being put onto the grid by solar, when the sun completely goes out at a time when normally the sun is providing at least some power to the grid, what's going to happen? It wouldn't surprise me if hydro officials and government types recommend that people power down somewhat during the solar eclipse. The other thing that I have to wonder is, are we going to be seeing more events like we just saw in with this Francis Scott Key Bridge? Supply chains are fluid things, and there's redundancy built into supply chains. There is excess capacity that is built in. It has struck me that, going back to the COVID era, that the COVID era demonstrated the resiliency that exists already within supply chains. However, I think what we saw during the pandemic is that the supply chain, it bent, but it didn't break. There's enough redundancy, enough overcapacity that we were able to weather the storm, as it were. And when we look at what happened in Zombie Force says it was in the Suez Canal, I think that's right. My aging brain can't exactly recall it 100%, but we all remember, I think it was called Evergreen was the name of the shipping company, or it certainly was the name on the container or the containers. And now we've got this one in the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Apparently, this is not a major port. This is not a major part. But the thing is, the supply chain in of itself is so interconnected that even if something that's considered not integral is impacted, it can impact everything. And bottom line, I think what we're seeing is, and I would invite anyone to go and check out Klaus Schwab's address, the World Government Forum, or you can find his addresses to this B20 summit in Bali, Indonesia in 2022. I actually was, oh no, I don't have it up. I'm going to bring it up just now, and I'll put the video in the live chat comments. So if anyone wants to watch it, and they're mapping out and telling us ahead of time what's coming. They want to completely overhaul the world's economy, our societies. They want to redefine what it means to be human, and they're saying it open. So I'm putting it in the live chat now. If anyone wants to watch, I'll also include it in the chat, or rather in the comment field down below when the video posts. We've got scary times coming. And I'm going to wrap it up. I'm not going to do a long video tonight. My last video, the mic shut down. I don't know what happened. I don't think it was anything nefarious. I don't think it's because I was not going that far down the rabbit holes to think that, oh, they're pulling the plug on me or anything like that. I just think it was a glitch. I think I might have had too much stuff open on my computer or something like that. But I was talking last time about anti-Semitism and the rise in it and how much it bothers me, and it does a great deal. I didn't get to finish what I wanted to say. Basically, if I can give it a 5-minute summation, if you read the Old Testament of the Bible, the Jews were told, have always been told, it's part of their culture, part of their tradition, part of the religion, to be in the world but not of the world. Abraham was called out and told to leave his kindred, his home, his family, leave everything behind. Come follow, I'm going to make you the father of many peoples. And then fast forwarding to when the Israelites went into Egypt, and they grew to a size of about 600,000. But when they moved into Egypt, they went in as the lowest of the low. They went in as farmers and shepherds, which was the lowest of the low for Egyptian society. No nepotism. Joseph, when he told his brothers, you're going to meet the Pharaoh, tell him you're farmers, tell him you're shepherds. If Joseph wanted to be, you employ nepotism, as is usually the case that you do with family, is you hire your family members into the best positions. He said, no. Tell them you're shepherds and farmers, which are professions which are odious to the Egyptians. Make yourself. And so they got to grow to a size of 600,000, and they wandered in the desert. So there's this built-in culture of being separate, being in the world but not of the world. And Jesus echoed that in his the prayer that he spoke before going to the cross, which is recorded in John, the Gospel according to John, chapter 17. Saying they, his followers, are in the world, but they are not of the world. That's our call. And Paul echoed that sentiments in many of his letters. So I think Christians rob themselves of so much of the richness of the gospel when they don't understand the significance and the importance of the chosenness of Israel. But then when we look at what happened subsequent to Jesus's death and resurrection, Jews became hated. And they still had built into this culture this idea of being in the world but not of the world. And so they tended to seclude themselves. And boy, howdy, when we get to, the Spanish Inquisition, in order to maintain their Jewish identity, they had to become what are called crypto-Jews, and they had to meet in secret. And whenever you meet in secret, people whisper, they kidnap children and drink their blood, and all these horrible fictions got told. But the Jews represented an easy target because they kept to themselves. And I also mentioned that they were also, because they were not precluded from loaning out money at interest, they did become vital, because neither Christians in the Middle Ages, right up into the 1500s, Christians and Muslims would not lend out money at interest. So that banking became a natural, it became a natural outlet for the Jewish community to work in and to be employed in, because their faith does not preclude them from loaning out money at interest. So this whole, I'm not going to say too much more on it than that, just that with everything that's going on in Israel, I think that's something else we should anticipate going forward. We've got, I think, the war in Gaza, and I think at some point we're going to see Hezbollah in Lebanon get involved. They are said to have something like 120,000 rockets that are pointed into Israel. There's a lot of damage that they could do, and then dominoes start to fall, similar to what happened in World War One. And we see the ongoing situation between Ukraine and Russia. We see the potential for conflict between Taiwan and China. And goodness knows, I'm sure there are other points of conflict in the world. Azerbaijan and Iran. Sure, there are some in Africa. It's global. And that situation that we just saw unfold in Moscow at that concert hall. Now that, interestingly, that happened on 3/22, March 22nd, 03/22. And I haven't had time to do much reading up on it, but 3/22 apparently is a number that is significant for members of Skull and Bones, which is a senior society at Yale University. And these, when it comes to Skull and Bones or Club of Rome or Council on Foreign Relations or the Bilderbergers or this World Economic Forum, and many more, I do think there is an interconnectedness to all these groups. And so I think it is reasonable to expect, to wrap things up and keep it under 30 minutes, more Black Swan type events. And again, April 8th, the day of the eclipse, even though it doesn't hit New York, it doesn't hit Boston, it doesn't hit Washington, D.C., it doesn't hit the most populated part of the United States. It starts in the Southwest and proceeds on a northeasterly track. And we'll see what happens. I'm sure I'll do a video, probably either I'll do one April 7th for sure, just specifically on that topic and about what's happening. But anyway, Zombie Force, Sharunian Allegiance, thank you both for chiming in. Shorter little video. Thank you for the thumbs up. And as always, I'm over 800 and I'm up around 805 plus. Thank you. And we'll see what the coming days bring. And I'm not saying happy Passover yet, because it's not Passover yet. Passover starts at the 22nd of April. And Jesus went to the cross at the Passover, during the Passover season. So anyway, God bless. Comments are welcome. And if I got anything wrong, or if you want to link anything up down there, I would appreciate it. Especially if someone can find Klaus Schwab, November 2022, Bali, Indonesia, the G20 summit, when Klaus Schwab addressed a parallel B20 summit. If you can find anything about him talking about Black Swan events and how we should expect more. We're still in the transitionary phase. Anyway, God bless. We'll talk to you all again soon. Night. Thanks for watching.